Hi, welcome to Jonathan's Art Journey. I'm Jonathan, and today we're going to be going over some business things, some economics 101. So, going to be going over the difference between price and cost, where profit comes from, how this all relates to value, and then using all this information to increase your financial situation. And if you heard all that and you're sort of cringing like, money. Oh, it's incredibly boring, and I hate thinking about it. Well, first of all, we're going to introduce the concepts nice and gradually, and we're not going to like overwhelm with a bunch of jargon or anything. We're going to go slow, so don't worry about that. And uh, you know what they say, knowledge is power. If someone else knows all this stuff and then you don't, you're at a disadvantage. So might as well watch a little educational video like this and increase your brain space. So yeah, let's take a look. So what is the difference between cost and price? If you're a consumer, if you're buying stuff, then this is often used interchangeably, but they actually mean quite different things in business. So your costs are what it takes to produce things. So as an artist, that would be things like pens and paper, paint, canvas, your computer or iPad or whatever you use to make your art, subscriptions to programs or one-off payments if you don't subscribe to our Adobe overlords, and even things like rent if you work from home, your internet connection, just everything that you need in order to do business, as well as your labor. It's a very important one. So it takes materials and it takes time. And in that time, you're going to use the materials to turn into a product by doing labor. So time and labor are the same thing. When you're buying something, you often say, what does this cost? But if you expand that out a little, what you're actually meaning is, what is this going to cost me to buy, instead of what did this cost you to make? And as we'll see now, those are quite different, and for a good reason. So price is a number set by the seller that they're willing to take in exchange for their goods or services. As an example, you might have prints for sale, and then you say, okay, these prints, they're $30 each. I'm just picking a number out of thin air here. So as the seller, your prices need to be higher than your costs, or else you're going to be losing money every time you make a sale. So, for example, let's take a painting instead of a print, because materials are a bit more expensive. So say it costs you about $40 in materials to make a painting, and then you sell it for $30, then you just made a $10 loss. It would have been better to do nothing. So you want to take in at least that much, right? If the painting cost you $30 to make, then you want to take $30 in for the painting. However, if you're running with no margins, if your costs and your price are exactly the same, then anytime anything happens where you need to pay money out for something, maybe your car breaks down, your computer breaks, some of your materials get damaged and you need to buy new ones, all of that you just eat on the chin. So that is where profit comes from. So let's go over everything we know so far. Cost is what it takes you to produce things and is consistent of materials and labor. The price is the number that you set, which is the amount of money that you'll take in exchange for your goods or services. Your profit is any money that you take in that go above and beyond your costs and is needed to cover risk. It's a pretty simple equation. So say you have a painting and it costs you $30 to make in materials and labor, and you price it at $50, then you make $20 profit. And you need that profit as a buffer against anything that might stop you doing business in the future. So that's how price, cost, and profit interact. So how does that all relate to value? So while the Price is the number that you set on your goods or services that you'll be willing to exchange them for. The value is what the buyer determines they'd be willing to exchange for it. So, for example, if I have a hat, you know what? I'll get a hat. So let's use, point it at the camera. Let's use this hat as an example. I don't wear it very much because it doesn't fit, and also is not. It's a little large, and it's also a bit ostentatious. But I own it. Let's use it as an example of where value comes from. So if I, as the seller, try and sell this hat for $30, to one person that might be completely overpriced because they can buy a hat with the exact same function for $10, and this one's used. I've owned it before and I've put it on my head. You saw it just now. So they would not buy it. But maybe for someone else, they really like the look of it. I bought it in Japan. You probably can quite easily get it, but they wouldn't be able to find one quite like it very easily. So that they'd be willing to pay $50 for it because they value it differently. In either case, I can't force them to buy my hat. I can only set the price, and then it's up to them to decide whether they think that's good value or not. So the important difference between these cases is, in the first case, they didn't want to buy it because they thought it was way overpriced, and the second was eager to buy it because it represented more value than the price I had set. The key thing to remember here is, when value exceeds price, people give you money. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it, but if it's the first hurdle to get over, and if it doesn't get past, then no transaction takes place. Easy as that. They could have all the money in the world, but if they don't think what they're buying is valuable, they're not going to give you anything. So where does this value come from? What makes up the differences in how one person would see things and how another would? Let's look at a tale of two white t-shirts. So if you go down to Target, you can buy a 3-pack of t-shirts for $10, which is basically $3 a shirt. There is a luxury brand called James Perse, and they sell a white t-shirt for $165. They're functionally the same thing. They're both white. They're both t-shirts. I imagine they're both similarly warm. Why would anyone pay $165 for something that you can get for $3? Well, it's made, the more expensive one is made of premium cotton from Japan. It's from a trusted brand, which implies maybe higher quality control, better construction, which means it'll last longer. And it might impress people, certain people who care about that sort of thing, to know that you're wearing a t-shirt from an expensive brand. Maybe it shows that you have good taste. But all of those things are kind of physical manifestations of just one thing, which is it makes you feel good to wear it. Not just physically from the nice cotton, although I'm sure that helps, but it makes you feel emotionally good to wear the expensive t-shirt. It makes you feel empowered, confident. It makes you feel like a baller. I'm wearing a $165 t-shirt. Hell yeah. I feel good about myself. Next example, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is priced very differently depending where you buy it from. Sometimes it's cheaper than water. Other times it's $10 for a glass. But it's still very popular in all of those places. They wouldn't sell it there if people didn't buy it. If you buy it in bulk from a wholesaler, it can be 30 cents. From a vending machine, $1.75. And then from the cinema, it's like $4.50. All for the exact same canned product. So why do people feel that that value is fair, even though the prices are so wildly different? So in the first example, when you're buying it from a wholesaler, you have to drive into an industrial area to buy it. It's inconvenient. You have to buy a whole pallet at a time. You have to carry that pallet to the, or maybe a box, but something heavy. You have to carry it, wait in line at the checkout. It's all dusty. It's just not a great experience. The only like thing you get out of it is maybe a feeling of, ah, yes, that was satisfying work. I went out and I hunted some Coca-Cola and I brought it back for a cheap price. Ah, good. At the vending machine, it's convenient, it's chilled. You can just drink it immediately right there. It's ready to consume, I think is the technical term for it. So how do you feel with that? You feel like maybe a sort of short-term, well, you feel less thirsty, I guess, after you drink it, but there's a shallow sort of relief, short-term pleasure, that's fine. But what about the cinema? Well, for one thing, they have a monopoly. You're not supposed to take any other drinks in there, so if you want a Coke, you're gonna have to pay the price that they set. Then why do people bother? Well, for a lot of people, it's sort of a part of the ritual of going to the movies. You know, you buy your ticket, you buy a drink, and you buy your popcorn. And because it's a habit, they sort of just do it every time, and it doesn't feel right if they don't. And it usually comes from early memories of the cinema where whoever you're going with treats you. So maybe you're going with your parents and they buy you a drink and popcorn because they like to see you happy, or because you won't shut up and $4.50 is a perfect price to get you to be quiet. So at the theater, people buy that $4.50 because it makes them feel appreciated, successful, relieved, nostalgic, or just because they always have and it feels wrong to not. So there's the secret of where value comes from. The important part is how it makes you feel. This is the underlying reason why people buy nice clothes, go to fancy restaurants, go on holidays with their family, even give money to charity. And it's certainly a big reason why people buy or commission art. The positive emotional reaction is the real value. And this counts for commercial stuff as well. So an individual, they buy a piece of their character and it looks super cool, and they look at it and they feel good. They're like, yeah, awesome. Or in an advertising campaign, they want the people watching it to engage with whatever they're looking at. So they want them to feel good in relation to whatever product they're shilling. Even on a large video game or movie series, you're a very small part of the machine, but the eventual goal is for the audience to be entertained, aka feel good. So how do we apply all this to our work? We know about price, value, and cost, how you need profit to cover risk, and people make transactions when they believe the value is higher than the price. And value comes from emotion. So the better your work makes someone feel, the more valuable it is to them, and the higher price they think is fair. And that means more profit if your costs are the same. An important thing to note is that these higher prices are not taking advantage of people or ripping them off. If you're really giving them that value, then that's an equal exchange taking place. It just has an intangible component that you can't list on a price sheet. It also requires a little bit of empathy, like you may not be the best judge of your art's value to other people because you're there with it all the time and you can see all its flaws, but you're selling to other people, not yourself. You need to sort of see what value you're providing them from their point of view. And again, you can't force people to buy from you, only set a price. So if they buy at a high price, then that means they think it's fair, and who are you to argue with them, really? So here are some good questions in order to find out what's valuable about your art, or how you can increase it. Who is it for, and why do they want it? What problem does it solve, or what value does it provide? So as well as eliciting a positive emotion, you can also, if you're solving a problem, you're taking away a negative one, which is net positive. For example, maybe you specialize in making portraits of family members. This often solves the problem of what to buy someone for a gift for Christmas or birthday, and it provides the value of a strong emotional reward. So for the recipient, they're seeing, hey, someone thought that my face is valuable enough to them that they want to pay someone else to paint it and then hang it on the wall as like a showpiece. That makes me feel pretty good. That makes me feel valued. And then for the buyer, they get to see the person that they bought it for reacting that way and receiving that sort of subliminal message that they're sending. So if you understand that, if you understand what the person buying it finds important, you can focus on those things to make your work even more valuable to them. So for portraits, you can focus on getting a likeness and capturing emotion in the piece, since that's what the client would value most. You could make a fancy, nicely rendered background and all that, but at the end of the day, the client isn't going to care about that as much as that other stuff. If you're concentrating on giving them more of what they value, then you can charge a higher but fair price for it than someone who just paints whatever for whoever and doesn't really understand this stuff. That's why it's important to know your audience and also not try and target everyone, because if you try and target everyone, you don't know what they value, which means that you can't give them something valuable, which means that you won't be able to charge very much for your work. So if we go all the way down the tree, that's how you make more money with your art. You can charge more for things that people find valuable, and they find them valuable if they make them feel good. So hopefully I've provided value to you with this video, and you can get yourself into a safer and happier financial position and making your chosen audience happy with it too. If this has brought value to you, maybe you'd like to see some more in the future, in which case it might be a good idea to hit that button that says subscribe on it. Or if you want to let me know, then there's the like button as well. That works too. Always helps me out. Thanks a bunch, and I'll catch you in the next one.